Hi, everyone. We're joining you for the first time ever with a recorded salon. Anne Perry is joining us here today, and she was gracious enough to be our guest for a conversation about new paradigm leadership in earlier last month. And I had a sick kiddo at home, so we did the work-life calibration balance thing, and we pressed pause. And Anne is kind enough to come back and meet with me, and we'll record the salon for you so that you can get to know her and experience her. And I just want to thank you again, Anne, for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in another unique situation in that Anne and I don't actually know each other that well. Anne and I crossed paths at a small, intimate leadership conference last year. But Anne spoke, and she really touched on a lot of the key tenets and core values and aspects of the Mystic Manifesto that touched my heart very deeply. So I was honored to feel that I had gotten to share space and share a stage with you, and really excited that you were available to come join us for this.
Yeah, thank you. And I felt the same about you. It was one of those things where you're like, okay, technically I don't know you, but I know you. Yes. and I see you, and I love you, and I'm happy to just know each other and continue that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what comes through today. No plans, just going with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a very, very much a feeling of instant kindred souls, similar vocabularies. Really enjoyed being in your energy. Part of why you came to mind for me in the context of new paradigm leadership is that you embody the energetics of the new paradigm leader. When you have the pleasure and the honor of being in a room with Anne, what you'll find is she is a bright, bright light. She has a big, beautiful auric, energetic bubble and light around her. She is very much a leader of her own energy and space and those around her. And she does that from a place that is also very grounded, very calm, and very soothing. And so for me, that was a perfect example and embodiment of this marriage of the divine feminine and a woman being in her truth while also commanding a presence. So anyway, that's part of how we landed in this conversation today. I would love to just invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing in the world today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, by the way. That really means a lot. Yeah. It really means a lot to hear that reflected. Gosh, it's such an interesting time to be talking about this, because I feel like in a way, I really have come full circle as far as why I've gotten into the work that I've gotten into. And actually the year of 2016, as has been for many of us, has been a year of really release and letting go. I saw my friend shared a meme that said it was like a teacher in front of the chalkboard, and she said, okay, there's the history of 2015. Now let's talk about 2017. Yes. Wait, what? 2016? We don't talk about that.
No, we strike it from the history books.
Yeah, just wipe that one. But, the truth is, for me, it was actually a really magical year. The beginning of the year was really, really painful. And it was just like, coming straight smacked in the face with what's in alignment and what's not. And yes. I was aware of the lesson as it was happening, and it was still really painful. Like, I would wake up in the morning with just the message in my head, sink, 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 sink deeper into your soul. And I was like, okay, I'm not even going to try to force any sort of solution, any sort of forward movement. I'm just going to sink, because that's what I'm hearing, and that's what I trust is needed, even though it is not enjoyable.
Yes.
And so really what I realized, to kind of sum it up, is what I came back to was, why did I get into entrepreneurship in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point? Because the point isn't, industry fame for the sake of industry fame, or money for even the sake of money. Money can, it's about like, for me, money is about having freedom and having my life.
Absolutely.
Nice things are awesome too. I'm not knocking that, but it's like, that's not the point. And the point isn't how big is your list. And the point isn't marketing for the sake of marketing. And I remembered why in the very beginning I even was drawn to entrepreneurship, which I don't even know I would have called it entrepreneurship back then. But it was really about having more life in life. And just, that's it. The first big, massive aha I had, I was working as an executive assistant at a nonprofit for $12 an hour, and just thought, what if, and I was on the side being certified in some energy healing modalities. And I thought, what if I opened my own energy healing practice, and like I could make like $50 in an hour instead of $12 an hour. Then that means I could work part-time and have my full-time income. Oh my gosh, that was the big awakening into the world of entrepreneurship. More life, more of my life, and when I am working, doing what is actually feeds me and is in alignment with my soul. My job was fine, but it didn't satiate me. I wasn't passionate about it.
Sure.
So I just started asking questions and I remember it was we had a 3-day weekend for Memorial Day or something. And I just remember going, okay, every single week should be a 3-day weekend at least. Like, it just makes such a difference. And I just remember going, what is the point of this? So we go to school. I mean, from elementary school, they're like preparing you for middle school, preparing you for high school, preparing you for college. You go to college, or I went to college, got like tons of student debt, and then got a job as an admin assistant. I'm like, I could have got that job without a degree, but then now I have all this debt. So now I have to work for the debt. And then it just felt like such a hoax. I was like, the way the whole system is rigged just felt weird and wrong. And so we go to this job from 9 to 5 that we feel lukewarm about. And then the leftover scraps at the end of the day, that's where our life fits in. But then we're kind of too tired to even take advantage of that, because then it's like, well, I got to be ready to go back to this job so I can have the privilege of paying my bills and having a home so I can go back to that job. Like, that's not what life is about.
Right.
Right. Whoa, that was a little tangent there. But that's
no, I think everyone in this circle can really relate to that. And also to the unwillingness to stay stuck there. Just like either by intervention of our bodies talking, or by intervention of life stepping in, there's kind of this soul calling that says, no, you're not actually going to lose 3 decades to this way of life. You're going to take the bold step and make a change.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so entrepreneurship to me is a path to creating more life in life. It's a tool for that. It's a path for that, but I'm also aware that it's not for everybody. Yes. And there's other ways too. And we can combine different ways, simplifying our lives, or just being creative with out of box ways to create freedom. Like, maybe instead of getting the condo with the HOA that you're stretching yourself to pay for this bill every month, what if, buying a little plot of land and building a tiny cottage, or, everybody's got their different flavor of the something else that they desire in their life. And yeah, so I just love finding creative ways to create the life that we want.
Absolutely. So how did Business Heroine flow into your awareness, and how did that all begin?
So Business Heroine, and we were talking offline before we started, my business is actually completely transitioning. So Business Heroine has been my business for the past, I guess like 3.5 years, something like that. How did that flow into my awareness? To be honest, I didn't even see it coming. I didn't see the full what it was coming. I actually was like starting to write a blog post every day and realized that I'm a slow writer. I can write well, but it's like giving birth every single time. So after it's done, I'm like, oh, look at my little baby. Look what I wrote. But like the whole process was just arduous. So I went, how could I leverage that? And so I decided to make it, to invite guest writers. And so it became a magazine. And then from there, it just kind of grew from there. It just became a magazine. And then the things that I had been learning, I decided to start teaching as far as how to get a business idea out of your head and into the world, and started doing that through Business Heroine Academy and private coaching, working with clients.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's just an evolution. One thing leads to another, and you sometimes don't even know where it's going.
Well, there's lots I want to ask you about all that you've learned having held the container and the Business Heroine basket these years, because you had an interesting vantage point and you had connections to women in the industry who work in all different ways in service to their own idea of what freedom is and their own idea of what their ideal picture of entrepreneurship is. But tell us a little bit about what's being born first. Let's hear about what's coming forward.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm so excited. My body just got tickles inside. So what is coming now? Basically, again, it's kind of that full circle that happened, which was, why did I get into entrepreneurship in the first place? And it was about having more life in life. And it was about opting out of this stress, struggle, sacrifice, repeat, 9-to-5 hamster wheel. And I guess I shouldn't even say 9-to-5. There's really even nothing wrong with 9-to-5, if that's,
sure.
But just this sort of matrix of the way that we've been taught we're supposed to do life.
Yeah.
And there are other ways to do it. And so it's kind of coming full circle to that. And it was like, we can opt out of that. We can choose to opt out of that. We can choose something else.
Yes.
And so what was born was this word else just really like popped for me. It was like, oh, like it's else. That's what we're craving. That's what we can create. And so the evolution that Business Heroine is evolving into is else society.
Nice.
Yeah. And I've been actually looking forward to talking with you, because I know yours is society and else is society. And there's something about this concept of society that actually was a really, really big spark, I should say, for what is evolving.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I was challenged actually by my coach to consider that what is coming through is not simply another magazine, because there is going to be a magazine component, Else Magazine. But she's like, your business is not a magazine. Just consider that. It's like a reality is what it is. Mm-hmm. And so this concept of society, it was just one of those like fireworks going off in my brain, aha, forehead slap kind of situations. And I was like, okay, here's the thing, because how do we actually create our reality in a really grounded way? Because it's one thing to have these idealistic notions that like, oh, anything is possible and we could do anything. But there's also the like 3-dimensional world that we still live in. So how do we make that actually practical? How do we actually do that? And how is reality actually formed and created? And so I was reflecting on that and I'm like, okay, so reality is basically created by this mass agreement of what is. And that's what society is. It's like a mass agreement of what is what is possible, what is realistic, what is normal. Society has an opinion about that. And so it's basically like a consciousness. And that consciousness is this invisible thing, but it permeates all of our cells, the way that we think when we're not thinking about it. If you don't try consciously to work on your thoughts, the thoughts that kind of seep in are what society agrees upon. And so what if we actually created a new society where it's like, instead of all of us being these rogue ants out there, kind of trying to find our way in the desert away from the anthill, what if we all gathered into a new society where we had a different common agreement about what is realistic, what is possible, what is normal, what is true? Because the same rules apply, like whether it works for you or doesn't work for you, what society chooses to agree upon does influence the way that our life goes. So it's either we can be in resistance to what society, mainstream society deems as so, or we can allow a new society to lift us up, to kind of influence us by osmosis, because it's like, again, the thoughts you think when you're not really thinking about it are seeped in by this different consciousness. So anyway, that's like the really big picture, what I'm really up to. Like if you pull the veil behind, it's like, that's what it is. It's reshaping reality and reshaping.
Do people get what you're saying?
Yeah. I have no idea.
I get this on such a profound level, and you are speaking to what people try to codify and to express about the mystic society. And the best way I've I found to express it is I'm creating an experience, and it has different components to it. And this experience has permissions granted within it. It has modeling granted within it. It has its own language and vocabulary. It has its own manifesto. It has its champions who are also modeling alongside. And so I too have kind of been striving to convey the power of an ethos that is also an experience that creates a reality. It's part of why people who step into the Mystic Society say, my life is changing in really unexpected ways, rapid change, like things falling away, things coming to me. And it's a little like Alice in Wonderland, but I have not had a sister to sister conversation about exactly how it happens or what it is. And I love your lens and looking at it as a lens to reality. This consciousness is part of what becomes the woven fabric of reality.
Yeah. Well, you articulated that so well, and it gave me goosebumps, and like, it's so awesome to be on this path with you, because that is what it's about. And who knows, I have no idea if what I say lands or not.
Well, we'll keep working the language forward together.
Right. But maybe it matters and maybe it doesn't, because like you said, when it's happening anyway and people's realities are shifting, that's why. It's not like people walk around saying, oh, my reality, like I'm in this job that I don't like because society tells me I have to.
Right.
It's like almost the unassumed or the like unspoken assumptions that we don't even know we're assuming, right?
Absolutely.
That has so much power.
And it's an important piece of a conversation that we have in the Mystic Society quite a bit about resonance. We talk about a new paradigm business methodology that I channeled before I actually stepped into entrepreneurship. I was working with a global nonprofit, and we were looking at why a large multi-million-dollar reorganization and rebranding and reorientation of the company fell flat, and how it actually alienated its true believers and didn't succeed in attracting the new followers that they had hoped. And so this methodology dropped in that was how to look at the phenomenon of resonance, what the energetic components are. It's our own little like MC squared of resonance, where you look at the authenticity, the congruence, and the alignment of a message, and how that creates a energetic frequency that either attracts or distances you from your audience, your desired goal, or whatever it is. But what you're describing as that, it's not necessarily that we're hit over the head with the 9 to 5 is this way and therefore we stay because we have to. It's this thing of following a tide, following a flow until we've been awoken out of it to say, oh, it could be something else. It could be something different. The image that I'm being shown right now is that thing that happens maybe when you walk into a social event or a gathering, and what pulls you into one room and leads you to leave another room? What pulls you forward to the small group in the back left corner? It's something that you feel. It's something about the energy they're putting off. It's something about how your own mirror neurons are responding to the impulses that are being put out in the group. And so, yes, I think that on the one hand, I ask, is it landing for people because you're the first person who's ever dropped into my awareness, who's thinking about it the same way I am, and kind of creating her own language around it, but also because to your point, does it matter? I'm not actually sure that it does, other than in helping people understand how to create more of it in their own world.
Right.
They're going to be drawn into what you're doing. They're going to feel Else Society from the very first time they feel the container you've created. They'll actually feel the trajectory and the evolution, because it's sitting in a larger basket that was Business Heroine, that already had deep roots. It had, the respect of its peers. It had a voice and a message. And so that subtle element of the experience is already at play for you. This wasn't conjured out of, thin air, which can be powerful in and of itself, but yours has a legacy, which is really fun. But yeah, I think the resonance piece speaks to how people will feel their way, both intuitively, but also in their bodies towards what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That was really profound. That's really, really cool. I love how you described that. And, back to this question of, does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it does on some level also, just because it's like when we can dissect it, like how it works, then we can consciously choose, right? So it's kind of like, okay, if it's the thoughts that we think, if it's the conversations we're around, if it's the people we're surrounded by, like if those things are what sort of create our realities, then we get to choose those, and we get to choose who we hang around. We get to choose, which is not news, right? I think there's that famous quote. It's like the person you'll be in 5 years is, or in a year, whatever, the books you read, the people you hang around.
Yes.
It's the same concept there.
Absolutely. So how fun, because you have this awareness as you're going into this, you're able to bring that belief system into this new basket that you're weaving. You, as I said, have a legacy of respect of your peers, high quality product, valuable coaching. So from that place, where is your vision taking you? What will this be? What is this becoming? Tell us what it will look like as it continues to evolve.
Sure. Are you asking what specifically it looks like to be part of Else Society?
Yeah, and I actually was even projecting that out a little further, kind of calling you 5 years down. When this is actually realized, what does Else Society feel like to you?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I can articulate this, so I'm just going to roll with it.
Yes.
But what I'm seeing, there's okay, I just had like 10 thoughts happen at once and they all exploded.
I love it.
So on the level of Else Society, there's almost like how I see it is it's kind of like pulling this curtain and all of a sudden there's this other world, or Wizard of Oz, where you go from black and white to Technicolor. And I see it as people who are really truly living at their else and actively creating their else as they are, moving through the years and making decisions based on their else. Because really that's also how we create our reality, is as an individual, where we have the power is in our choices. And so it's like, if there's this, okay, does this feel good or does it feel slightly yucky? If it feels slightly yucky, I just choose to say no. If it feels good, then I walk in that direction. And so I would love to see a society of people who are choosing what feels good, what are choosing what feeds them with aliveness, and showing and teaching each other. So I really am not a huge fan of the guru model. I think that we do need, champions and teachers and models and I don't know what the words would be, people who have gone there before us to show us. But I also think it's important that we don't put those people on pedestals too much and give our power away. And, everybody's else is so different that I feel like it's an opportunity for us to all learn and grow from each other. It's like one person might be going down a whole different path, but they say something that you're like, oh, that completely applies to this. And just an abundance of sharing as we're finding out, and everybody teaching and sharing as we go. And that's what just came out of my mouth. But ironically, that wasn't even one of the 10 thoughts that exploded in my head. I don't even know what I was going to say.
It's perfect. It's so great. What you're describing in terms of, mentoring and being mentored and allowing everyone to find their voice and their place in the circle, and even the aversion to guru-itis, which I completely share with you, reminds me of our both share friendship and close connection with Elena Lipson, and she talks about this leadership concept, leading from the circle. The idea that even as the circle expands, we continue to hold our leadership and we can guide from the circle. Tell me a little bit about your leadership model and how you have led your way to where you are today.
Oh God, it's such a good question. I've never thought about that at all. I don't even know. I've never really, I guess, I know I'm a natural leader, but it's not that that's something I identify myself with. So I think that's why I'm having a hard time answering.
It's like the water in your fishbowl. You are it.
Maybe so. I think it's just that, honestly, part of it comes from, I have a low tolerance for boredom / just things that don't feel good, meaning out of alignment.
Yep.
I have a low tolerance for that. And so it really has been a personal quest.
Sure.
There's just got to be other possibilities. And so I've just been actively doing that. And I suppose just talking about it along the way, and then finding resonant people. I don't know what we call that.
I think you just rattled off a 4-step methodology. My little framework brain is like, oh, listen to that.
Tell me.
She's visioning and creating her own reality. She's stepping forward in that space. She's letting body, wisdom, lead her forward. And then she's identifying tribe and calling them forward based on that. That to me sounds like a new paradigm leadership approach that speaks to the way I've at least witnessed you and create connection.
That is awesome. I love that. And you know what? I love that so much. I'm going to have to go back to this recording and transcribe everything you've said because you're a genius.
I do love frameworks, and I love hearing how the divine feminine creates, leads, and I was about to say governs. I'm not sure I've ever said that word out loud, but I mean it. That's almost like how we tend our fires, and these aren't always things we sit around and look at, well, how did I do that? And from what place and what were the steps I followed? But it very much is a part of that reality, consciousness, and experience that others become aware of when they're in your presence, because it's unique, because it's part of what they're drawn to and what they're following. Do you think of yourself from that place of leadership when you are, say, I think about running my times, brief time around magazine and publishing. Being a leader in that space very much meant being okay with visibility, being okay with outreach to people that you may or may not know, identifying who would be a good fit for your tribe and who isn't, being willing to hold healthy but lovely boundaries around not a fit, yes a fit, that kind of thing. Did those types of processes or thought process fit into your picture of leadership from where you stand?
I would say that all of those things have been lessons along the way, for sure. Like noticing what is a fit, what is not a fit. As far as, and the other piece, I think what it all comes down to, if I had to, I don't even know if I'd say I define my leadership like this, but define just sort of how I'm choosing to do life, because I've learned that if I don't do life this way, it just doesn't really flow. But it's like alignment. 100% alignment, or it's not an alignment, and because if you're driving, let's say you're just on this wide open field and you're driving a car, if you tilt the steering wheel just this much, a couple miles down the path, you're in a different place. So it's like,
totally.
Yeah. So
I always say that about the healing analogy with the ship, people want to see radical shifts, especially people overcoming chronic illness or challenge. They want to see radical shifts overnight. This is true with entrepreneurs too. But it's such an important reminder in both directions, the positive and the negative, that the tiniest little shift completely changes. Completely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a really good perspective. It's so true. And often if we were to just all of a sudden have the radical shift,
yes,
who knows how we could even handle it if we're not ready for it. It's, whatever that is. Like when I think back to who I was in my stage of entrepreneurship, like 4 years ago, if somebody had handed to me what I'm building right now, I would have blown a gasket. There's no way I could have held that,
Totally. Yes.
I can now, because I've built the muscles over time, and it's still stretching me, I'm not going to lie, but I know I can handle it.
Absolutely.
But to speak to your question about, so with alignment, that's about the choices. Like, do we, who makes sense to, feature in our magazine? Like, does this client fit or does this client not fit? All those things. That's a piece of alignment. And the other piece of alignment is that I've been giving myself a permission slip for over the years, is doing the activities that actually are that are in my nature. So operating in the way that's in my nature. So for example, I used to do a lot more very specific how-to teaching. And I found that for me, for the way that I'm wired, it was heavy. And actually how I love to share is just show up and have a conversation like this, that I didn't even plan, wasn't even there's been no, but I feel like that's how it just things flow out of me better than when I'm planning it all out. So that's an example. Another example is I'm not super networky. And so how I approach that is just business connections as friends. I just like to make friends with people who I would want to be friends with anyway. I really think of it that way. It's like, if I want to go up to you and talk to you at a party, then let's just be friends. And then as far as the strategic outreach kind of stuff, I have my awesome team member, Katie, who loves to do that. She gets to do that. So it's kind of like this permission slip to let go of what, because what's out of alignment for me, meaning like it's just not my nature, is somebody else's idea of a cherry, a sundae with a cherry on top.
Absolutely. So know what feels good to you. Yes.
Yeah.
I had the wonderful experience of working in an organizational community model that very much used body talk as a guiding system for even action items on a strategic plan. So how does it feel to you? How does it feel to you? If it's a no, don't do it. We'll wait, we'll pause. In my experience, it's very challenging helping women get to that place where they can make decisions from that place that you're describing. I loved when you said a few minutes ago, for example, if it's, what would you say? If it's a yes, it's a yes. But if it's a little bit icky, it's a no. And that little bit icky is not where most women are. It's like, if it's a hell no, it's a maybe not. And otherwise it's, I'll probably do it. And how have you, and then you also said 100% alignment. Both of those things are destination for a lot of women that I work with. This idea that you could hold yourself to this thing where it have to be in 100% alignment, or even a little bit icky is a no. Is that something that you evolved into, or is that a clarity you've carried with you?
That's a great question. I think maybe a little bit of both. Like, my mom always told me I was always very discerning. And I know, at one point there was this, really fancy schmancy internet marketer who offered me it was before like I had any sort of success, and he saw potential in me and offered me this opportunity, but it didn't feel right. And I said no. And I was like, am I going crazy? Because that is crazy. But now I know, like, if just because it's shiny doesn't mean that it gives you what it promises. And there was nothing wrong with that person. It just wasn't the fit,
Yep.
But so I think that maybe I have had that in me, but also I have definitely been learning that the hard way. And I just know, like, years ago, I was just working myself into the ground. My body got sick, and I was just doing work that was hard, that was heavy, that was arduous. Like, I could do it, but that's not what I should be doing if it feels so hard. And so my body getting sick was, to where I couldn't, was a really, I had to learn it that way. So that wasn't fun. It's nice to not go there. Another example was, I shared at the beginning of our call, the beginning of 2016 for me was one of those where it was like, I feel like the more I've sort of gone down that path, the more it is a job of refinement. Yeah. And it's almost like my relationship with the universe is like, nope, a little bit means a no. And let me show you by slamming you on your face and kicking you while you're down, just a little bit, just so you remember. So, it's like not just this noble thing. I've learned the hard way, and definitely have had my ass kicked.
I feel like the assumption is that the opposite is true, that once you get clear, the universe gives you more leeway to be off track. And like you're describing, I think it's the opposite. Once you've kind of come to an agreement with spirit that you're going to listen to what your body says, if you go against that, the results are intense and rapid and not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to do that. Yeah. You described something else that's very courageous. And it's also something that women entrepreneurs struggle with quite a bit, which is knowing when to let go and knowing when to let something change. So you created something beautiful that you're known for and is valuable and is connected lots of women to really important messages. And you're also granting yourself permission to let it evolve and change now, and to become actually a bigger basket, to encompass more than just business, to speak to women on what in the mystics we would call a full wheel level. That is edgy. It's an edgy thing for women to know. Is this pulling the plug? Is this putting something on the back burner? Is this abandoning? Is this just being nimble? Is this pivoting? It's a big discussion, and not many successful women leaders are talking and have had the courage to take people behind the curtain, so to speak, on how they made those decisions. What was that like for you?
And I'll just throw this in on the edgy side. Else Society is also open to men now too. It's not just serving women. So
nice. Yes.
That's different. And that can be, that one's a little scary. I'm like, oh, please don't be mad at me.
We went through that evolution with the mystics as well, and it's been really lovely. We've attracted exactly the conscious, aware, sacred masculine energy that I think, serves this experience and consciousness. So I'm extending that vision and blessing to you as well. Yes.
Yeah, no, I trust it. I haven't received any negative feedback. And actually, I just got a comment on Facebook. I just shared it before we jumped on. And
beautiful.
My friend Corey's like, all right, so dance party, dudes, like, let's be it, and then I got an email from this guy this was so cool. He lives in Israel, and he found me from some old YouTube videos I put up before Business Heroine even.
Wow.
I was doing something called the Virtual Vagabond, which was basically, my husband and I got this RV and we were traveling around the country for a year and a half. And so it was kind of like how to create a freedom-based business. So really it's like the message has been the same throughout these different evolutions of it. But anyway, he was like, I actually just sent your videos to my friend in a birthday email for her as a little birthday present. It was so sweet. And anyway, so he's been like in Business Heroines, like on the edges watching. And so now he's happy to be involved.
Now he gets to be in.
So, officially, he doesn't have to just be a fly on the wall. So it's cool.
Beautiful.
Okay. So ask me the question again. You were asking like how that happened or how I knew it was the right decision.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing for people you've invested in a brand, you've grown something and it's real, and you're granting yourself permission to let that evolve. And I see people who create their own prisons, just the way they felt about their old job or their old corporate whatever, or their whatever it was that they thought they were escaping before. They then create their own because of a lack of willingness to let themselves evolve and change the way you are. So I was just curious, was that also something that just kind of comes naturally to you, or was it one of those things where you just knew it had to happen, or was it hard and did you have to work through a process?
Yes, to all of the above.
Okay.
I love the questions you asked me because these are things I've seriously not really taken a microscope to. So I'm just rolling with it. But, it wasn't like an overnight decision. Absolutely. I think that I was feeling it probably about a year ago, where I was just starting to feel like something wants to shift, something needs to shift. And it was last spring. So, depending on when you're listening to this, it was spring of 2016.
Sure.
When I got very clear. And actually now that I'm reflecting on it, the way that I got clear is I have a little meditation practice where I tap into my higher self, and she presents herself to me and like shows me things and tells me things. She's always dressed in white and gold. My friends joke that she's like J-Lo, because she'll be like wearing gold heels, or like she wears
nice.
She's kind of like this Atlantean priestess kind of woman, like
beautiful.
She's a mermaid. She hangs out at the beach a lot. Anyway, she shows me things, and what I was seeing, I got this vision of the house, because I was considering like something's got to shift, and so I thought, is it a rebrand? Is it like a shift of? I didn't know like exactly what it was. But what I was seeing was there's this house, and it was like, okay, the house is too small, or it's just the wrong house. And so you could remodel it, you could like clean it, you could paint it, you could, get new flooring and fixtures and all that, but it's still the same house and it has the same layout. And it's like, well, you could knock down walls and you could like seriously knock this house down completely to the studs, but it's still on the same plot of land. And that plot of land is only so big. It was like this little in a neighborhood sort of square. And then I was shown like this sort of expansive hillside, like, hundreds of acres versus like a little neighborhood plot. And I didn't know what was there, but it was, and I kept going back to that visualization and seeing it. And that was when I knew. So it was in the spring, and I went, okay, like, I don't know exactly what's next. I don't want to, and then the analogy basically showed me, so if that's the case, like if you have a house and you realize the house is too small, or it's just not the right fit for you anymore, you don't just burn it down and walk away. You sell it, or you clean it up and, you know, like you don't, so you clean it up. And so basically I was like, okay, so what we're going to do until I'm clear what's next is we're going to keep the lights on. We're going to keep, you know, we're going to keep publishing articles. We're just not going to be putting extra into like growing and expanding. So this year was really a contraction. I got really quiet. I just wasn't writing. There was just nothing to write. I was like, not that empty inside isn't the right word, but there was nothing, I wasn't overflowing. I was quiet. It was an inhale year.
It totally a pause. It's such a sacred thing. Yes.
Yeah. And so I worked just with my private clients, and that's all I did. And the team just kind of, you know, kept Business Heroine going so that when clarity came, we could transition in a responsible way and in a way that we're holding people for, you know, who have been committed to Business Heroine. And, you know, my hope is that Else Society is everything that we've provided in Business Heroine and just more expansive and even more.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It was a process. It was a journey for sure.
Well, it's such a gift to get a little peek inside your world and a little peek inside your mind and your process, and to meet your Atlantean priestess higher self. I feel honored. In concluding, if someone's really feeling activated into this idea that they can craft their consciousness a new way and they can begin to influence their reality via the choices that they make, what's one thing that they could do from wherever they are and whatever resources they have to kind of get started on that path?
Yeah, I love that question. What's coming through for me right now is it's the choices again. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you think of it as, there's like this spectrum for how your life could look. It could look over here, over here. I don't know which one's right and which one's left, so just go with me. One side is like, you're dead inside. Your soul is being sucked out. Like you're, you know, the opposite of being vibrant and alive and joyful. Over here is alive and vibrant and joyful. That doesn't mean like gleeful, happy, yippee, skippy all the time. That means alive and fulfilled.
Yep.
So those and our life can end up looking like any of that. And the where we have free will is with our choices, and those choices are in every moment. Yeah. And they're with the big things. They are like, do I let go of this business or do I not? Do I start this venture or do I not? Do I quit this job or do I not? Like huge things like that. Do I stay in my relationship or do I get divorced? And they're also in the very little minute things, like, does it feel good right now to take a walk outside and give myself fresh air, or does it feel good to jam out this email and then there's not a right or wrong answer again, right? But it's like, if we and our bodies have the answer, which I have a feeling you talk about body wisdom a lot. Yes. But our body does. So if you take a moment and you just find in your body like a feeling of not it. Like, this is not it. This feels yucky. This feels gross. Maybe thinking about a person that you feel really disempowered around, or a situation you feel really disempowered in. Where do you feel that in your body? And then put yourself in a situation when you feel into, like, I feel confident. I feel alive. I feel, you know, beautiful, smart, like all those things, whatever that is, excited for the future, and find that feeling in your body. And maybe just write it down, put it on a sticky note and have it in front of you. Like, not alive feels like pit in stomach, swirly, twirly, barfy. Yes. You know, like feeling alive feels like a rising in my chest, or it's, you know, different for everybody. So write that down. And then with every single decision that you encounter, like maybe just practice for a week with every single decision you encounter, just go, which side of the spectrum is it on? Because if you think about it, so here are these two outcomes. And here's like where we are at this beginning of your choose your own adventure. Like, we get plopped on earth and it's like, choose your own adventure. You get to choose the outcome. Your tool is choices. Yes. And joy is not the goal necessarily. Joy is your guide, or I should say aliveness is your guide, not the goal. So you don't go, well, let me just suffer through this for a little bit longer so that I can have my freedom and be alive. I tried that one. That was when I made myself sick. Right. It's what feels most alive now, like what feels best in my body now, walk in that direction. And as you keep walking in that direction, and you might go back here and then, you know, but the more you choose that, the more your life just looks like this. And your life now looks and feels like your version of aliveness.
Totally. It's such total brilliance. I just finished reading the bestseller, what is it? The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up.
Oh yeah. Do
And
that with your life and your business.
I'm like, and the book that we're waiting for you to write is The Life-Changing Magic of Decision Making, and how you can absolutely craft your consciousness and your reality in the way that you're describing. That's such excellent guidance for all of us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And so funny you mentioned that book, because that was when I read that book, I was like, what if we just do this with our whole life?
Yes.
If I do this with my business, like, does that spark joy? No. Okay. That's going away. Does this spark joy? You know, it's like that book is brilliant. Like, if you've read that book, who's ever, if you're watching this and you read that from the perspective of tidying up your home, read the same exact book from the perspective of tidying up your life. Like, yeah.
I want you to write it. I'm on your pre-sale list. I'm ready to buy that book from you and come to the book tour and promote it from the hills.
Okay. Yay. Awesome.
Wow. Well, I'm so excited. Where is the best place for people to find you and to find Else Society?
Elsesociety.com. So ELSE society.com. I told my mom when I was like, Mom, I have the name. It's Else. And she's like, Elf? I'm like, no, Else. She's like, oh, I thought you said Elf Society. That would be fun too. I'm like, yeah, that would, but this is Else Society.
There's a little elf and magic in there. I can feel it.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I want to encourage everyone to seek you out and to follow Anne. I want to thank you again for showing up in your light and your leadership as you always do. It feels so fun to be in your presence. And I want to just extend an open invitation to you into the Mystic Society as well. We would love to hang out whenever and however the opportunity arises.
Thank you. I would love to. And thank you so much for having me, as part of this conversation today. And it's always fun to connect with you. I'm happy we got to get to know each other.
Me too.
Just in this moment too. So
me too. I'll definitely look at how we can weave you in the future, because I know people are going to watch this interview and they're going to want to raise their hand and ask questions and engage with you more. So we'll see if we can't weave that into 2017.
And vice versa. Business friends. Go business friends.
Great. That sounds great. Well, thank you again so much. We're going to sign off. I will go ahead and get this up into the portal. All of you who are finding it, if you do have questions, go ahead and post questions in the Facebook group, respond to the email releasing the content in the portal, or reach out and find Anne at Else Society, because we'll be there to answer questions as well. All right. Thank you all so much. We'll see you online. Take care. Bye.